Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a bit of a special video because I didn't really anticipate this in my schedule. Um, Today I'm just going to react to Mr. Trump's announcement for re-election, or 2024, like the third time he's doing this. I'm just going to react to it quickly. I'm just going to give some insightful points. I hope it's not going to be, let's say, an hour. I think some important points need to be made, but I don't want to do the entire thing, because then it will be with reactions and commentary on my end. It would be like 2 hours, so it's a little bit over the top. So let's just get really quick into it. Put in an earbuds. So see you on the other end. All right, take it away, Mr. Trump.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of Melania, myself, and our entire family, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a very special occasion at a very special place.
Okay, real quick. This is a personal pet peeve of mine, and it's all these cell phones. I find it really annoying. It's the same thing with concerts. It's the same thing with festivals. People are obsessed with putting their experience on social media, like the narcissists that they are. Just live in the moment. Their camera's behind you, saving the moment, and there's probably a live stream just like this. This is from Donald Trump's Rumble channel. Come on, you can just watch it back again. You don't need all these cell phones. It's ridiculous. Um, Furthermore, Trump very respectful in his starting statement. Starting off really strong. I get that 2015 vibe from him, so I think he's got his energy back. Happy to go for this.
You and all of those watching are the heart and soul of this incredible movement and greatest country in the history of the world. It's very simple. There has never been anything like it. This great movement of ours, never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we have all done. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and my fellow citizens, America's comeback starts right now.
Well said. I can't make it any better than that. It's on point, the message, and it's a very crucial thing right now, especially when morale is this low. We need someone as president who can be a motivator, and it appears that Donald Trump has got his mojo back. That's it. It's done. I'm happy to support this guy. This is unreal. What I am a little bit critical on is a statement saying that hasn't been a movement like this. The Trump movement was predated by the Tea Party movement, so in 2010, which gave us someone like Marco Rubio as senator. So it is a precursor. But the Goldwater Revolution, which fomented Reagan, I think is a little bit bigger. Just a tad. And personally, myself, I am more of an Eisenhower kind of guy, so my preference is with Trump over Reagan, because unlike Reagan, Trump is actually trying to get peace, which was a crucial part of the Eisenhower platform. The main point that Dwight Eisenhower ran on was ending the Korean War. And with Donald Trump, we have seen that exact same policy, trying to end the Korean War. Funny how that war is lasting about 80 years now. No, it's 1953 is the ceasefire, so an additional 70 years. It's almost as long as World War II. I mean, the troubles immediately began in Korea after the Soviets, well, curb stomped the Japanese army at the tail end of World War II. So, let's continue before I run completely dry.
2 years ago, when I left office, the United States stood ready for its golden age. Our nation was at the pinnacle of power, prosperity, and prestige, towering above all rivals, vanquishing all enemies, and striding into the future, confident and so strong. In 4 short years, everybody was doing great. Men, women, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, everybody was thriving like never before.
Okay, one little pet peeve of mine in this particular case, and that is the notion of consistently expanding American with something before it, so saying black, Hispanic. I don't like it. We are Americans. Period. Don't divide us by race, don't divide us by creed, by class, by any of this bullshit. We're Americans. We're in it together, we're in it to help one another, and we need someone who doesn't divide us and put us in categories. This is not game breaking for me, or candidate breaking in this case, but it is a concern of mine.
There was never a time like this. We turned the page on decades of globalist sellouts and one-sided trade deals, lifted millions out of poverty, and together we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. When the virus hit our shores, I took decisive action and saved lives and the U.S. economy. And by October of the same year, America was roaring back with the #1 fastest economic recovery ever recorded. How about that?
This is partially correct, but on the other hand, it's also wrong. So, it is true, the United States had a V-shaped recovery after the first lockdown. That's correct. My position is that there should have never been a lockdown in the first place. Yes, the elderly are the main risk factor in a virus. It is with any virus. So when you have a new virus coming out, it is very important to protect the elderly. So my position from the start has been quarantine the weak and the vulnerable and let everything else run its course, as is. What this does is it keeps the economy flowing, which is necessary. With the economy flowing, production is there, and we didn't have the inflation that we're suffering here today. It is essential for everyone to know that any nation who has locked down due to Corona, they are now experiencing inflation. Every single one of them. Sweden didn't have a lockdown. Their economy is fine. Korea, Taiwan, Japan, their economy is fine. It is true in East Asian nations that they have more of a focus on hygiene. So during flu seasons they're already wearing masks. So it's a cultural thing. So we can only compare it with Western nations, and we find that every European nation lockdown, they are experiencing severe inflation. Sweden is the only one who did not, and is the only one in Europe who isn't facing inflation. Pattern recognition. I keep hammering on that one because it's the most important evolutionary trait that we humans have been given. Back to you, Mr. Trump.
All of the incoming administration and all they had to do was just sit back and watch. Inflation was non-existent. Our southern border was by far the strongest ever. And because the border was so tight, drugs were coming into our country at the lowest level in many, many years. Importantly, after decades of rising energy costs, the United States had finally attained the impossible dream of American energy independence, which soon would have turned into energy dominance.
100% correct. The only thing Joe Biden had to do was stay out of the machine. Keep the engine running as is. That was it. And he couldn't do that. It was with the Afghanistan deal. The problem with Democrats is, even if Trump does something good, and he does, because every single president, about half of the things they do is good, about half of the things they do is bad. That's true. That's basically every single president. But the thing is with Democrats is because Donald Trump got elected, they maintain the policy of everything this guy does is bad and we need to oppose it. There are plenty of articles from the Babylon Bee, for example, that stated, very simply, ingenious move, Donald Trump endorses impeachment, so Democrats are forced to oppose it. That's the kind of thing we're having here. So the issue is, Democrats will do the opposite of what Republicans do, regardless of the policy. And this is very dangerous if a policy position from a tactical standpoint. Because what this means is they will do anything to tear down America. They will do anything to tear down our society, its morals, its foundation, and the rules of engagement. This is dangerous. You don't play chess with a pigeon because the pigeon will toss away the pieces and crap all over the board and claim it won. You don't do this kind of stuff. So the issue here is, do we, under any circumstance, allow Democrats to continue with this destructive path? That is the main issue we have to face. And I think that the only solution to fixing the country as is would be to ban the Democratic Party from operating, just like we did with the Communist Party. Position here is, we should not allow ideologies that want to destroy us to exist. Fascist parties are banned in Europe because of the Second World War. Eastern European nations banned communism because they suffered under Soviet dominance. Freedom of assembly is a thing, but when it comes to political power, it becomes a new step, and it doesn't fall under the First Amendment anymore. Because to cry out and call for a revolution is no longer collecting or assembling in a peaceful manner. If you intend to overthrow a government, that is revolution. That is a breach of the First Amendment. So, yes, political parties legally can be banned. Can it be enforced? That's a different story. We'll just have to see. Continue.
For the first time in memory, China was reeling and back on its heels. You've never seen that before. because the United States was outdoing them on every single front, and China was paying billions and billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs.
This is another problem, and this is the legacy of Nixon and Clinton. My personal stance is simple. There's only one China. The Republic of China, which is currently in exile on Taiwan. That is the one China, in my opinion. Nixon reverted the policy to hand the mainland to the communist occupants. Bill Clinton then said, 20 years later, you know, these Chinese, they need to be part of the world economy. And this attempt, it was a misinformed and quite stupid attempt to try and lure communist nations into more of a liberal philosophy. Here's the problem. They didn't move to us. We moved to them. We became more authoritarian because we allowed communists to infiltrate us, to influence us. The Patriot Act would never have been a thing if China wasn't accepted into the global economy. All this surveillance, these cryptocurrencies, these mass surveillance programs, they wouldn't exist if we simply said to the communists, you are illegitimate, get fucked. We wouldn't have this problem. So my position, and I support anyone who runs for office with the same position, automatically, there must be a one China policy. We must recognize the Republic of China in Taiwan, and no one else. Go.
Farmers know that because they got 28 billion of it. No president had ever sought or received $1 for our country from China until I came along, and we were getting hundreds of billions of dollars. Many people think that because of this, China played a very active role in the 2020 election. Just saying, just saying.
A little swipe. So this is a little policy pet peeve of mine, 2020 election. It wasn't really due to foreign influence that Trump lost. It was due to systematic voting changes made in Democrat states by Democrat officials. In Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, in Minnesota, nationwide. Mail-in voting turned election day into election month. And with that, it completely destroyed the integrity of the entire electoral system. Just saying. I don't care if anyone is offended by that. I don't care if anyone calls it a conspiracy or whatever bullshit like that. The only difference between a conspiracy theory and reality is time. Because 99% of these conspiracy theories are correct. Just saying. Mail-in voting is a scam, and it directly contributed to the failure. Ballot harvesting should be a crime, but it's legal in these Democrat states. Vote buying is a crime, it's already a felony, yet they still do it. So Democrats, they ignore the rules of engagement regarding elections, and the only way that a Republican can win is by engaging in the rules. Mike Garcia, California 27, he knows the rules. Democrats in the state of California made it legal to ballot harvest. So guess what Mike Garcia did? Ballot harvesting. And with 70% of the vote counted, the race is called for him. When in the special election in 2020, he won with, 5,000 votes? It only won by 0.5% over the 2020 election. And now he wins by 10 points. That's how you do it. In a district that is Democrat plus 15, Biden plus 15 district, Mike Garcia, Republican, wins by 10 points. He knows the game. He plays it well. We need to follow his example. Where legal. And once we get into the White House, we get back again. We take these illegitimate election procedures and we toss them out the window. Simply say, this kind of stuff feigns any form of integrity, it needs to go. That's just it.
Sure, that didn't happen. Instead of jobs and factories leaving America for China, they were for the first time ever leaving China for America.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a problem. You cannot have environmentally sound policy and industry. So when these imbeciles proclaim that they want to go for a green economy, there's a little problem. Production of goods and services is polluting. Assembly of parts is polluting. Human life itself is polluting. So there is no circumstance in any way, shape or form that I lost my train of thought there. There's no circumstance in which you can be an environmentally conscious individual, environmentalist, and in the same side support industry. Someone like John Fetterman is a walking contradiction. It's going to be funny to see him in the Senate bumbling around like a giant orangutan. That's going to be funny. It's going to be a distinct characteristic choice from the Democrat Party to elect someone who is less cognitive capable than Biden. Well, the second least, because in Philadelphia they elected a dead guy. So, yes. Having said that, America isn't really a manufacturing nation anymore, because manufacturing is just too expensive with all the environmental regulation from the EPA. We are a nation of assembly, and the production takes place in India, in China. And with the EPA existing, manufacturing is too expensive in America. That's just fact. So the entire environmental policy needs to be repealed in full, and a conservationist policy needs to be placed instead. Conservation is different from environmentalism because conservation seeks a balance between humanity, life, industry, commercialism, and environmentalism is saying, damn humanity, the planet is the important part. So the difference between the two is a balanced approach or a very, very heavily anti-humanitarian movement. Conservatism needs to use Teddy Roosevelt's policy of conservationism. It's a part of our identity as Republicans.
Businesses were pouring back because of our historic tax and regulation cuts, the biggest in both categories in history, bigger even than what Ronald Reagan was able to produce, and he produced a lot. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea were in check and respected. They respected the United States, and quite honestly, they respected me, knew them well.
This is another very important point with presidential policy. That is that the head of state has to be hawkish on adversarial nations like North Korea, like Iran, like China, like Russia. you have to be a hawk. As the famous saying is, fuck around, find out. This is exactly what the policy should be on foreign nations. Ever noticed that Russia wasn't screwing around in the Caucasus or in Ukraine or in Eastern Europe when Trump was president? Strange, huh? But Russians annexed Crimea in 2014 under Obama's watch. And they started attacking Ukraine immediately when Biden was in office. Strange. How Democrat leadership seems to encourage aggression in Eastern Europe. But then again, I do also remember Vladimir Putin saying a very important subject. And that is, the Democratic Party should be the ones in the White House because their philosophy is much closer to communism than the Republicans. With a Republican, they're always going to be wary and oppositional to the Russians. Democrats, like Bernie Sanders, are sympathetic. We can work with them. That's what Putin said. That's exactly what we're seeing here today. Weak policy from the Democrats is encouraging Russian, if not Soviet, post-Soviet aggression. Well, according to the propaganda books that are in the Russian bookstores, they want to go back to the Soviet Union again. So it's pretty clear that Russian aggression can only be contained with a Republican in the White House.
I knew them well.
Another thing, North Korea. They stopped with the new missile testing with Donald Trump in the hat, but as soon as Biden was in, they immediately resumed their missile testing. Funny that happens.
The vicious ISIS caliphate, which no president was able to conquer, was decimated by me and our great warriors in less than 3 weeks, and al-Baghdadi, its founder, was hunted down and killed. North Korea had not lost.
This is a little off, in my opinion. And the reason for that is the USA, with the Pentagon and the CIA, they have funded rebels in the Middle East. That's true. The Mujahideen was funded to fight the Soviets in the Soviet-Afghani war in early 80s. Then we funded the Taliban to fight the Mujahideen. Again, true. Then we funded Al-Qaeda to fight the Taliban. Then we funded ISIS to fight Al-Qaeda. Are we sensing a pattern yet? By involving ourselves, by inserting ourselves into the Middle East, we keep the war going. The war in terror will exist for as long as the US sends armaments to the Middle East. Now, here's a problem. If we don't send these armaments anywhere, we can't produce them because we don't need them anymore, which means these companies go bankrupt. So, out of economic interest, I want to change the policy a little bit. I, and every other American, should be able to own the exact stuff that the US government is giving to Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. I should be able to have that stuff too. Give me a good reason why I shouldn't be able to own a M249 squad automatic weapon. Give me a good reason why I shouldn't be able to own an M16. Give me a good reason why I shouldn't be able to own a Barrett 50 cal. Or the new SIG rifles. Give me a good reason why I shouldn't be able to own a tank. Or an F-16. As far as the Constitution is concerned, the Second Amendment is quite clear. we the people have the right to keep and carry armaments. These rights shall not be infringed. In 21st century English, it's very simple. I, as a sovereign citizen, DC versus Heller, have the right to keep, to own, and carry Bruen, the Bruen versus New York case, to own armaments. Armaments is just the English definition for rifles, pistols, machine guns, basically anything that is an armament used by the military. So this includes defensive items, like smoke grenades, like body armor, night vision. These are things that I can legally own. And shall not be infringed. These 4 words. If we translate it to 21st century English, we can summarize it in 2. Is unlimited. Period. I should be able to own this stuff. So, out of the financial interest, my patriotic duty to support American industry, just sell the armaments to American citizens. And if every single American, if like 1 in 100 Americans owns an Abrams tank, guess what? There's no fucking way that the Russians are gonna invade us. There's no fucking way that the Chinese are gonna do it. Nobody is that crazy to go up against a nation where there are 3 million privately owned tanks. That's not happening. That's like, what, 300 times the German Panzer Corps in the Second World War. Come on, man, nobody's gonna invade with that. With that kind of armaments against them. That's not gonna happen.
Launched. North Korea had not launched a single long-range missile since my summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un.
Correct.
Nearly 3 years before we developed a relationship, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Very good thing, actually.
He could have done a little more here. I wanted to see a complete ceasefire. Not just a ceasefire like in 1953, an end to the war. An end to hostilities. That's what I wanted to see. It's not what John McCain wants to see, because he's looking up from hell going, God damn it, we're not at war yet. That's what he's saying. But fuck McCain. That piece of shit is where he belongs. And John Bolton will probably soon be joining him. I don't expect the man to become 80 years old, so there is a significant chance. The man is elderly, there's a significant chance that he's going to die at some point. Henry Kissinger, same story. Fuck that guy. And his political strategy of madman rushing to the nuke button. But I think there should be a peace deal. A definitive end to hostilities with North Korea. And a normalization of economic ties. That's what I want. Again, Eisenhower politics. It's why Eisenhower ran on ending the Korean War. Let's make up for his promise, shall we?
Actually, because look at what's happening today. My opponents made me out to be a warmonger and just a terrible person who would immediately go into war. They said during the 2016 campaign that if he becomes president, there will never be a war within weeks, and we will have wars like you've never seen before. It will happen immediately, and yet I've gone decades without a war, the first president to do it for that long a period.
This is also the reason, partly the reason of why the Uniparty machine fought against Donald Trump. They make billions of dollars in wars, just like the one in Ukraine. Sending 30 billion over, Ukraine is using it to invest in cryptocurrency. That main company is then seeing their wealth increase by billions of dollars, and they are donating that money back into the coffers of the Democratic Party. FTX scandal that came out like 2 days ago. 100% true. But don't think that only the Democrats do this. No, no, no. The Bush side of the Republican Party is doing the exact same thing. Halliburton, anyone? Dick Cheney made $30 billion of that shit. Both parties do this. Donald Trump was the only one who stood against it. And that is exactly the reason why the machine doesn't like him. And that is the exact reason why I support him. And will support him. Forever.
The world was at peace, America was prospering, and our country was on track for an amazing future because I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. I kept them.
I just realized we went through like 5 minutes of the video and I kept a half an hour on talking. This is fucking hilarious. A little swipe at the media there. Look, I can drink a bottle of water with one hand. Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
He looks
Under
better.
our leadership, we were a great
It's like he
and
de-aged by like
glorious
5
nation,
years.
something you haven't heard for quite a long
At least
period
5,
of time.
maybe 10.
We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation.
Nice crowd.
But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to...
You attempted to fill them. The Democratic Party blocked you. They call it a bailout for the oil companies. At a time where the price of a barrel was negative. Oil companies would give you money to take their oil. And the Democrats blocked it. Fucking stupid. These Democrats, they're absolute morons, imbeciles, sub-temperature IQ, sub-room temperature IQ. That's what these Democrats possess. They don't care about any policy, they don't care about anyone, they just want to see you suffer. They are sociopaths, psychopaths, absolute devils. I'm getting pissed off, continue.
keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election.
True. Last day of Donald Trump's cabinet of administration, $2.39 for a gallon. Today, it is, let's check. Gas prices AAA. Let's go. $3.37. So it's $1.30 above the last day of Donald Trump in office. In California, having $5. This is less than European prices. European prices like $7.50 per gallon at the moment, but it's always been that high. Usually it's about $6 now. With the heightened gas prices, it's a little more than that. Notice how states with Republican leadership have lower gas prices on average. Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, look at this. All Republican states. West Virginia, well, they had a governor, that Jim Justice, he was a Democrat, switched to Republican, so it's a bit of the remnants there. We got Ohio, newly Republican state. We can newly add it to the column, so they're probably going to do some things to reduce gas price over there. Indiana needs to pick up the slack. And the same thing goes for these three. Alaska's ridiculous, but Alaska is not going to be a Republican state for much longer. Thanks to Lisa Murkowski, fucking bitch. Only because she lost re-election in 2010, and then one with write-in campaign. That's why she's still senator. And she's still pissed off about it and decided, you know what? I'm gonna create a system where it is impossible for me to lose. That is what ranked choice voting is.
Joe Biden has intentionally surrendered our energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom...
True. This is the policy of the Giga Chad Trump versus the Virgin Biden. Trump says we need to be the best that there's ever been. We need to be number one. And Biden goes, it's okay being number 5 or number 10. It's okay destroying our own country. But Joe Biden, he isn't doing it for his own good. Joe Biden, he is doing it because he wants to completely destroy this country. Because he's bought and paid for by China. That's it. He took his son, Hunter, on business dealing in Air Force 2, then lies about it to the press, lies about it to the American people on the debate stage, and then acts like nothing happened. And it's the same thing with Burisma Holdings. He threatened Petro Poroshenko, a man that he put in office with the 2014 revolution, that he financed with John McCain and some other dipshit Democrat senator. I forgot his name. I think Schumer, maybe? No, I don't think it was Schumer. Walker from Virginia? That could be it. I'm gonna need to check on that, but it's pretty simple. So you have Yanukovych, who was fairly elected by the Ukrainian people. Within a year, he's overthrown because the man is friendly to Russia. Then you put Petro Poroshenko in, a man hand-selected by the Western Alliance. And then they pressured Viktor Shokin, investigating Burisma, into firing Shokin, because he was investigating Burisma, where Hunter Biden, but not only Hunter Biden, it was Mitt Romney's son was also present there. Nancy Pelosi's eldest son was also at Burisma, or another Ukrainian energy firm. Isn't that funny? How the war machine on both sides of the aisle have their fingers in foreign oligarchies, just plundering the money that we as taxpayers give them. Isn't that funny? How they commit treason on a daily basis and nothing happens. It's all a big club. You and I, we ain't in it.
Find us detestable. Our southern border has been erased and our country is being invaded by millions and millions.
True. 2019, there was about 300,000 border crossings for the entire nation, for the entire year. 2020, a little lower than that. Biden's first year, 2021, we reached about 1.8 million illegal border crossings. 2022, we're now at more than 2 million. We're probably crossing the 2.5 million threshold. You know what? I'm just gonna check it. Illegal border crossings, here you go. CBP, yeah. Nice little graph. So we're at this financial year for 2023, we're already at 200,000 for this quarter. Almost 2.5 million. So we're seeing here, it is 4.1 million. We're already past that. In just 2 years of Biden. Just 2 fucking years. And you can already see it in this graph, 2021. Trump's final months. So no, wait, the year 2020. So we have this. We have the election. Here's the election. So the 70,000 border crossings. December, January. Biden is in office. At January 20th, So we go from 78,000, boom, 100,000, 50% increase. 1 month of the retarded dipshit being there. Next month, almost doubling. This is already double the highest number in Trump's years. Second month of the retarded dipshit, the resident in the White House, currently. Democrats. Surprising how this happens.
Of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very bad and sinister reason. And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border. The blood-soaked streets of our once great cities are cesspools of violent crimes, which are being watched all over the world as leadership of other countries explain that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in...
Yeah, so gang membership in the United States, it is about 40% black, 40% Hispanic. And these two rival racial categories in gangs are fighting each other in our cities. That's why cities are so high in murder rate. It's gang-related warfare. We need to do something about this. And we see that the drugs flowing in through our border is done with Mexican drug cartels. But not only Mexican, it's also Colombian, Venezuelan, Nicaraguan. It's about traveling in cocaine. It's about traveling in heroin and other drugs. But here's the thing. If we legalize drugs, the price is going to plummet of those drugs. But the smuggling still continues. Why is it? Because they are intent on making money. If avocados are more expensive than cocaine, then they will smuggle avocados in. That's just how cartels work. They're intent of making money. And it doesn't matter how they get that money. It matters that they get it. So we need a closed border system to completely cripple the cartels. The alternative to a closed border system would be to declare war on these cartels. To invade Mexico in the home turf where the Mexican government is working together with the drug cartels for their production. So invade Mexico, exterminate the cartels, and it would also be a way to bring stability to Central America again. I don't think anyone is going to be willing to do that. Any US president would be insane to do it, because there are plenty of delegates from Mexican drug cartels available in the US. They're in DC, they're in New York, they're in Chicago, in Detroit, in Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. They're all over this country. And if we declare war on these cartels, they'll wreak havoc on our inner cities. That's just the truth. Moving to the drug side. This is also true. Fentanyl kills more than 200 Americans every single day. Every day. That's more than 70,000 people on a year-to-year basis. And not a single president has done anything about it. New England is one of the highest hit sections in this nation. New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. These are the ones suffering the most from fentanyl. But you don't see any of these governments doing anything about it. Governor Sununu, he ran on tackling the drug issue. He has yet to do anything to it. Scott ran on combating drugs, combating fentanyl. He ran on that. Now he's serving his fourth term as governor of Vermont, still yet to do anything about it. Feckless leadership. That is the two words that describe America the best. We don't have leaders. We haven't had a good leader since Reagan. And even Reagan, in my estimate, in my opinion, is subpar.
In Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And
You could have done that on. You could have done all that weaponry on my front line. I would love that.
Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something and even the Democrats admit that. That's something I've seen them admit over and over again. But
yep,
our
Biden's failure.
enemies are speaking of us with scorn.
Exactly when it comes to the Afghanistan thing. The only thing Biden had to do was to allow the deal to go forward as is. But he wanted the symbolic 9/11 as exit date. Here's the thing. You don't give a definitive exit date. Especially when you're unwilling to take the armaments out. Armaments that are being sold to the Chinese as we speak. Simply put, it is a disaster. And it's a disaster of Biden's making.
Scorn and laughter and derision because of those two events. But there are many more. Even just today, a missile was sent in, probably by Russia, to Poland, 50 miles into Poland.
No. This is the start of warmongering rhetoric, and I will not have it. If Trump decides to be a warmonger as candidate, I cannot support that. That's a hard line for me. Period. We already know, US intel has confirmed that it in fact is a Ukrainian missile that accidentally landed in Ukraine or in Poland. So this is not the win you're looking for, Donald. I'm just gonna say that. Under no circumstance should we be drumming the war on. We should be going for a ceasefire. That is what our policy should be. Like Dwight Eisenhower, we need to go for a ceasefire between what is essentially West Russia and Russia, in all intents and purposes.
Poland, and people are going absolutely wild and crazy, and they're not happy. They're very, very angry. Now we have a president who falls asleep at global conferences.
100% true. He also craps himself
by the
in front of the Pope.
British Parliament over Afghanistan, thanks to the words of wisdom. He said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment of all things. They fly for days to get there, and then he calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent. And he's leading us to the brink of nuclear war, a concept unimaginable just 2 short years ago. You cannot mention the nuclear word. It's too devastating.
I don't want to set the world on fire. Gotta love the fallout. Pun intended.
The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about, and yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine? They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years. But don't worry about nuclear weapons that can take out entire countries.
This is an excellent point, actually. Um, there have been 65 predictions regarding climate-related issues starting from 1950, and 0 of them have been correct. Striking record. It's almost like the success rate of the Bush Republicans. So here's the thing. When it comes to this kind of policy, environmentalism, these are the same people who use private jets to fly everywhere across the world, even for the little grocery trips. These are the same people who then buy oceanfront property in Martha's Vineyard when they say that the seaboard level is going to rise by about a foot, and therefore the entirety of their property would be underwater. Why do we take these people seriously again?
One shot. Something is wrong with their thinking under Biden and the radical Democrats.
Here's another thing. America and Russia have different nuclear weaponry. Americans are more of a tactical stance, which means it's designed to take out military bases in one go. The Russians are still on the principle of mutually assured destruction, which means that they use cluster bombs. They use megatons of material. Russian weapons are designed to wipe out cities in one go. The first target of Russia wouldn't be America, it would be London, because Russia treats the British as their number one adversary. So I bring it back to these propaganda books, the fan fiction, basically written about how a Russian teenager goes back in time and then assists Stalin to defeat the Germans and then the English, or a Russian teenager going back to Germany, convincing Hitler to create an alliance with Stalin to crush the British. Those are the kind of fan fiction books being written and published in Russia. But it is true that if one of those new Satan missiles hits New York proper, that means King is gone, King County, Queens County is gone, the Bronx is gone, Staten Island may be gone, Long Island will be fine, and then you have all the fallout with current flows moving over New England. So much radiation will be there in Connecticut, in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, that these places will become unlivable if one Satan missile hits New York. That's a fact.
America has been mocked, derided, and brought to its knees, perhaps like never before. But we are here tonight to declare that it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. Two years ago, we were a great nation, and soon we will be a great nation again.
Yes, sir.
The decline of America is being forced upon us by Biden and the radical left lunatics running our government right into the ground.
No. The decline of America is done in part by the Democrats. But the Republican Unit Party, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, those morons, they're in on it. The destruction of America is because of globalist intent. And globalism, in this case, unlike the New York Times, is not about Jews. Unlike what the New York Times claims, it's not about Jews. It's about people who want a one-world government. And in order to have a one-world government, the main superpower, America, needs to be cut down. So you're either a globalist, which means you hate America, you want to tear it down, you want to see it destroyed, or you are an America first politician. We have a significant minority in the Republican Party that we have sway. We have enough numbers to keep McCarthy out of the speakership. We have the majority, it's proven. Mike Garcia won, that brings us to 218. Kevin Kiley won, brings us to 219. So we're already there. Boebert, 220. So we're there. Valadeo, 221. And that's probably going to be the extent of it. And I blame McCarthy because we could have won a 13th seat. We could have had Duarte in there. We could have had for the 2 Long Island districts. We could have kicked Porter out. We could have kicked Levin out. We could have had 225. At the bare minimum. But here's the thing. McCarthy does not want a significant majority. We could have had 247, 248, 252. That's something we could have had. It was in the cards. But here's the thing. The majority of those candidates that didn't make it were our America First candidates. Funny how that works. Because if that's the case, all these America First caucus members wouldn't have voted for McCarthy either way. And what happens then is that we would have had an America First speaker. Someone like Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, Matt Gaetz. Someone like that. Someone who was actually willing to take the issues and fix them.
This decline is not a fate we must accept. When given the choice, boldly, clearly, and directly, I believe the American people will overwhelmingly reject the left's platform of national ruin, and they will embrace our platform of national greatness and glory to America.
I'm not so sure about that. The propaganda from the mainstream media is so deeply rooted. The programming is so deep. I don't think we're able to break it. To quote Yuri Bezmenov, these people are demoralized. Confronting them with the truth will not change their mind. Confronting them with all the evidence of their systematic demoralization will not increase their morale. It will only keep them destroyed. And a demoralized person is incapable of being brought back. This is the Soviet tactic of destroying nations. It's working. Payback from the grave. That's what we're witnessing.
Glory. Exactly 1 week ago, our citizens voted in the important midterm elections. And despite a ridiculously long and unnecessary period of waiting, far longer in fact
Excellent
than
point.
any third world country, just a short time ago, the Republicans won back
Yes, California is a third world nation. Thank you for acknowledging that.
control of the House of Representatives.
Only barely with the sabotage of Kevin McCarthy and Romney McDaniel. Don't forget the first part.
And it was with a great Trump-endorsed candidate, Congressman-elect Kevin Kiley, who is a fantastic person, and I'm very happy it was his vote that did it. But we now won back. This happened just an hour ago. Much criticism is being placed on the fact that the Republican Party should have done better, and frankly, much of this blame is correct. But the citizens of our country have not yet realized the full extent and gravity of the pain our nation is going through, and the total effect of the suffering is just starting to take hold. They don't quite feel it yet, but they will very soon. I have no doubt that by 2024, it will sadly be much worse, and they will see much more clearly what happened and what is happening to our country, and the voting will be much different.
I'm gonna place X to doubt on that one. Again, this is the demoralized people we're talking about. There's no evidence that these people would change their mind ever. These are the vote blue no matter who cultists we're talking about. They vote in literally dead people for their office. They vote in Epstein affiliated clients into Congress. Allegedly. They vote in child rapists. Again, allegedly. It doesn't matter who is on that ticket. If there's a D behind it, they'll vote for it. If it's a glass of water or a sandwich, they'll vote for it. These are so demoralized, so convinced in their narcissistic, psychotic ways, that nothing will change them. Democrats could nominate the devil for president. Literally the devil. And these cultists will vote for it. We saw that in Colorado, where the Republican losses have been historic. We saw this in Pennsylvania, where Ducey deliberately threw Mastriano under the bus, and as a result gave away Pennsylvania in the 2024 presidential election. There is no way in hell that Pennsylvania will go Republican in the presidential election, because the guy that rigged it in 2020 is now governor of that same state.
2024. Are you getting ready? And I am too. I am too.
That energy, I love it.
I do want to point out that in the midterms, my endorsement success rate was 232 wins and only 22 losses. You don't hear that from the media.
So I did the analysis as well. I didn't really update it in the last month of the election. I have 173 to 9, but that is only the general election. But then again, in the later states where endorsements were made, I didn't really update that. So for an example, Malloy in Vermont was endorsed by Trump. I don't have that in my analysis. But then again, a Republican winning a statewide election in Vermont, probably not going to be the case. Unless the Republican is Phil Scott. So there have been formal endorsements, but it didn't matter because the states were in a safe district. I am glad, however, that Donald Trump didn't endorse Joe O'Dea, because that guy's a Bush guy. He underperformed Trump, albeit by half a point. Joe O'Dea was a never-Trumper, and he deserved to lose. And the fact that Ron DeSantis endorsed the guy says enough to me. DeSantis ain't it.
And this is an elegant night and an elegant place, and I'm not going to use the term fake news media.
Beautiful.
So we're going to keep it very elegant. But you don't hear that from
Presidential
the media. but I think you will because people are starting to see what happened. That's some score. And in the primaries, it was 98.6%, but they were still trying to blame me. And the reason
Yep.
for the success and that unprecedented success rate is that the Trump administration changed our nation on trade, on securing the border. We're the strongest, safest border ever in the history of our country. On Islamic terrorism, we had practically just about, not that I can think of, no Islamic attacks, terrorist attacks during the Trump administration.
Maybe the
fact,
one in
we got along very
Orlando.
well with the various countries.
When was that? I think the one in
Including
Orlando in the
coming
gay
up with
nightclub.
the
Wasn't it like
Abraham Accords.
2017,
It's a great
2016?
thing, the Abraham Accords.
Oh,
But
whatever.
it's because of cutting taxes and cutting regulations at the highest level ever, and on building the greatest economy. Any time in the history of the world, there's never been an economy like we had just 2 years ago. Despite the outcome in the Senate, we cannot lose hope, and we must.
So, this argument of the greatest economy is a little bit deceptively because economies are dependent on the number of people. So, the gross domestic product is the earnings of the entirety of the American people. So, if in a section of over from presidency to presidency the population increases by 15 million people and their income stays the same, technically speaking, the gross domestic product has increased by 15 million over the 330 million people. So that's like, what is it, 4%? So GDP would increase by about 4%, making it the greatest economy ever. So it's a nonsensical statement to say greatest economy ever because it's basically the same thing over and over again. Every president can make that claim. With the stock market, record highs. Again, it's economic confidence. And if more people introduce themselves into the stock market, then the stocks will increase in prices because supply and demand. So saying we have record 401ks or record Wall Street performance, again, it doesn't say much. It does say something for, let's say, your retirement, your 401ks. For the rest, it doesn't really do anything. So record economy is kind of like a nonsensical jerking off your own ego, that kind of thing. So, not really a fan of that kind of pompous attitude.
All work very hard for a gentleman and a great person named Herschel Walker, a fabulous human being who loves our country and will be a great United States Senator. Herschel Walker, get out and vote for Herschel, and he deserves it. He was an incredible.
He does it. He does deserve your vote. Georgia, Herschel Walker deserves your vote. Simple as. He is better than the wife beater that is Warnock. He is better than the hypocrite of a Catholic priest that is Warnock. Georgia doesn't deserve a senator that votes in line with the New Yorker. Georgia deserves a senator that votes in line with a Republican. At the very least, he should vote in line with someone like Susan Collins. So instead of 96% of the time voting in favor of Joe Biden's bills, he should be voting about 60% in favor of them. That's the reality of it. And the same goes for John Ossoff. John Ossoff, I think he votes like 100% in form of line. So here is a distinct problem with Democrat senators. Especially if they represent states that have Republican constituents. The majority Republicans constituents. Like West Virginia, like Montana. You need to vote more as a centrist senator. And the same thing goes for Republicans who live in Democrat-leaning states. Susan Collins does this. She votes more in line with Democrats. I don't like her for it, but she is representing her state. Unlike Ossoff, unlike Warnock. That is reality. And with the losses in the Senate, Adam Laxalt, best candidate that the Republicans put up for Senate in the last 10 years. Easy. Blake Masters, best Senate candidate that they put up. Better than McSally. Better than Jon Kyl. Better than Jeff Flake. Better than John McCain. Masters should have gained support. Oz, he was a bit of a mixed bag. But then again, McCormick wouldn't have won either. Barnett, I don't think would have won either. I think this would have been a cycle that if Pat Toomey ran, he would have lost. It was inevitable that Pennsylvania would go. Looking at the data in hindsight. So we have those 3 seats. Don Bolduc, he deserved better. He's a man who sacrificed most of his life to protect this nation. And he deserved that seat. And McConnell left him to die. McConnell is an absolute dipshit, and he deserves nothing. Kick the fucker out.
Incredible athlete, he'll be an even better senator. Get out and vote for Herschel Walker. We elected a group of incredibly talented America First leaders who will be stars of our party for many years to come. In the popular vote, another thing that's not discussed for the House, we
true.
must remember that Republicans won 5 million more votes, the largest margin in many, many years, over the Democrats. 5 million more votes, that's a big thing. Breaking the radical Democrats' grip on Congress was crucial. So in other words...
And suddenly the national popular vote is irrelevant.
Great congressmen and all of our great congressmen and congresswomen, we have taken over Congress. Nancy Pelosi has been fired. Isn't that right?
Nancy Pelosi is the only speaker in U.S. history to lose the gavel twice. Awesome. Fuck her. But here's the problem. Yes, we won the popular vote by 5 million, which is about 4.5 percentage points. But we only gained 9 seats in the House. We lost 1 in the Senate. But with the runoff, it's probably going to go back to neutral again, because I think Walker is going to win. And it's going to be narrow. Maximum of 2 points. So it's going to be a 50-50 Senate once again. We could have had a chance at 60 seats in 2024 if Mitch McConnell wasn't a self-serving, narcissistic retard. That's just a fact. And with McConnell, he rather wants to be minority leader than majority caucus senator. And I'm glad that Rick Scott is challenging him, because he needs to go. McConnell needs to go. End of story. McCarthy needs to go. He did everything to sabotage great patriots like Joe Kent, who lost his wife in a war where he found out afterwards that she died, raising his 3 kids on his own. Absolute legend of a man. And McCarthy called the man a communist. He called the man... He made campaign posters in southern Washington calling Joe Kent, American patriot, a Nazi. Despicable. McCarthy needs to go. Ronna Romney McDaniel, another imbecile who purposely sabotaged the Republican chances in the House, the Senate, and the governorships. Doug Ducey as leader of the Republican Governors Association. He systematically threw great Republican candidates under the bus. sensing a pattern here, once again.
I told them, I said, if you just keep a little bit lower standard, you're going to have a big victory. They said, let's win by 40 seats. Let's win by 50. I said, if you win by 2 seats, be happy. But she's on her way to another country right now. She's been fired. But we always have known that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use. 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words. American dream. That was not good what he did.
Nice step.
There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
And you got my endorsement. As long as you keep the war hawk bullshit out, you got my endorsement.
People say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. Really.
True.
You ought to try it sometime. Together we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening. This is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country.
True.
This is a job for
the GOP was dead after Romney.
Workers, firefighters,
it would have died if Donald Trump didn't run, and if it was Jeb Bush.
Stay quiet.
There wouldn't have been a Republican Party anymore.
Stay quiet any longer. You're
Donald Trump saved
about
it.
What's happening to our country. Our
And I'm
country
forever
is being
grateful for
destroyed
that.
before your very eyes. It's a job for every aspiring young person and every hard-working parent, for every entrepreneur and underappreciated police officer who is ready to shout for safety in America. The police are being treated so badly. These are great people. They can straighten out the crime. They're the ones that know how to do it. We have to give them back their respect and their dignity. This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together.
At your service. I like the Pim Fortuyn attitude here. A man serving the people instead of the people serving the man. This is presidential material. This is his mojo from 2015. He's back.
Because the only force strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. It's true. The American people, the greatest people on earth.
God bless America.
And we love both sides.
And God
We're going
bless
to bring
Donald
people
Trump.
together. We're going to unify people. And it was happening in the previous administration, previous to the previous. And what was bringing them together was success. Prior to COVID coming in, the people were calling me, that were calling me. You wouldn't believe it. People that were so far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible, like never before. And then COVID started coming in from China. We call it the China virus. Some people call it other things. But it was devastating, and we built it back and did an incredible job. But when people say Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives. I say we can all get together. And we were doing that. That was happening just prior because the success was greater than this country has ever had. We were leapfrogging China and leapfrogging everybody else, and everybody wanted a piece of it.
Amazing. Look,
But just as I promised in
so I can keep going like this. We still have like 45 minutes to go in the video. But I'd much rather that you watch this video without me talking over it. So I'm gonna keep it here. I'm gonna close it up like this. Looking at the recording in OBS, it is almost 1.5 hours of me just reacting to this. So when it comes to the speech, it's been about 20 minutes. I think it's a great speech. It's a great announcement speech. Great presidential material right here, right now. I am endorsing Donald Trump formally. He's a man, the legend. He's gonna go for the second man in U.S. history for 2 non-consecutive terms. The only worry I have is his cabinet picks and his VP slot. What I want to see is we use the primary to select the vice president. Simply say the one who has the second most delegates, that's the VP. Unless everyone decides to sit out. In which case, it becomes really, really concerning. Because selecting a vice president is a little different than electing one. And then you get morons like Mike Pence trying to get that slot. So, if the vice president under Trump's second term becomes a neocon like Jeb Bush or Prescott Bush, or maybe someone like Mitt Romney, doubt about that one, Joni Ernst from Iowa, another great example of a neocon. If it becomes someone like that, I'm gonna have my doubts about it. And when it comes to other candidates, there are some that are too polarizing, in my opinion, to run. For an example, Donald Trump seems to be set to pick a woman as vice president. And I'm not a fan of the ideology, the identity politics. So then we look, which female candidates do we have that are prominent within the Republican Party? It becomes Carrie Lake, who is refusing to concede the 2022 governor's election, and she shouldn't, because it's simply too fishy. You have Marjorie Greene over in Georgia. She can be better serving as congressman. There's a better position for her there, representing her district of northwestern Georgia. You have Elise Stefanik over in the northern section of New York. Again, I'm not really warming up to the idea of her as vice president. Then we get Joni Ernst. Not a fan. We get I can go through the entire list of prominent women in the GOP, but there isn't really a single one that I'm warm to. What I want to see is Randall Paul, senator from Kentucky, because that guy has the guts to be a great president. He just lacks the executive experience. And as vice president, you can give him that experience. And with that, Rand Paul, someone who is fiscally responsible, he would fix the financial issues, which is the current most threatening to America's existence. To America's existence, to the American people, and the American alliance, if you will. So for me, a Trump Paul ticket is perfect. And with that, there would be no question about it. There would be 100% vote for me towards Trump and Rand Paul. And if Rand Paul isn't selected as vice president, I may choose to write in Rand Paul as vice presidency pick, depending on the choice of vice president. Then again, my home state, or my current home state, is safe Republican. There's no need for me to canvass. There's no need for me to vote. Because we got it in the back. It's 6 electoral votes, yes, but it's still 6 electoral votes for Donald Trump that are safe. There's no need for us to have this discussion. So having said that, all of this in a rant, I think with the 20 minutes that I've seen, this is a great speech, presidential material, and he's going to do a great job in the campaign, in the primary election, in the general. And the only thing that makes or breaks this presidential run is the way that we Republicans play the game. If we do not play the game of voter harvesting or ballot harvesting, mail-in voting, and all the other shenanigans that the Democrats do, we are going to lose if we do not play the game. So our job should be get into the White House and then immediately fix the system. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my commentary on Donald Trump's announcement speech. Like if you did, share it around if you think others should listen to this, to particular points that I've made. Thank you kindly for watching, and I'll see you next time. This has been a surprise video. Cheers.